Welcome to Heartline Stories. What would you do if one ordinary day turned into something extraordinary? Abigail's life changed forever with a fainting spell outside the courthouse. But what happened next stunned everyone, including her ex. Was it destiny? Was it a twist no one could see coming? Stay with us to find out the shocking turn of events that redefined her story. Let us know where you're watching from, and don't forget to like and subscribe to Heartline Stories for more captivating tales. On a rainy Wednesday morning, Abigail stood outside the courthouse. Her heart was heavy, and her hands trembled as she clutched her umbrella. Today was her divorce day. She wasn't sure if the cold weather made her feel worse or if it was just the sadness sitting deep in her chest. Her ex-husband, Brian, arrived a few minutes later. Brian was tall with short brown hair and glasses that always slid down his nose. He waved at Abigail, but she couldn't bring herself to wave back. How did things come to this? Just a year ago, they were laughing together in their little blue house, making pancakes every Sunday, and now they were saying goodbye forever. Inside the courtroom, the judge spoke calmly and asked both of them questions. Abigail felt like her brain was moving too slowly to understand. She signed some papers and stared at the big clock on the wall, wishing she could make time stop. When it was all over, Abigail stumbled out of the courtroom. Everything felt blurry, like she was walking through a dream. Suddenly, she felt dizzy. Her knees wobbled, and before anyone could catch her, she fainted right there on the courthouse steps. Brian rushed to her side, calling her name. "Abigail! Abigail! Are you okay?" But she didn't respond. An ambulance arrived quickly, and Brian climbed in beside her, biting his lip nervously. He didn't know why he was so worried. After all, they were no longer married. Yet something inside him couldn't let go of the person he had cared for all these years. At the hospital, doctors ran tests while Brian waited outside the room. His foot tapped against the floor as he stared at the clock. Finally, a doctor came out, holding a clipboard. "Mr. Parker," he said, looking at Brian, "there's something unusual we found." Brian stood up so fast that his chair almost tipped over. "What is it? Is she okay?" he asked, his voice shaking. The doctor took a deep breath. "She's fine for now, but we found something unexpected during the tests. Abigail is—" Brian's heart raced as he waited for the doctor to finish the sentence. "Abigail is pregnant," the doctor finally said. Brian blinked, trying to process the words. "Pregnant?" he repeated, almost in a whisper. His mind swirled with questions. How? When? They hadn't been together for months. He felt like the ground beneath him had shifted. "She's only a few weeks along," the doctor continued. "That's likely why she fainted. Her body is adjusting, and the stress she's been under probably didn't help." Brian sank into the chair, his head in his hands. Abigail was pregnant. With his child? Or was there someone else? He didn't know what to feel. Confused, surprised, maybe even a little angry. But one thing was certain. He needed to talk to Abigail. When Abigail woke up, she was still groggy. Her eyes fluttered open, and she saw Brian sitting by her bed. "What What happened?" she asked weakly. "You fainted," Brian said gently, leaning forward. He hesitated for a moment, then added, "Abigail, the doctor told me. You're pregnant." Abigail's eyes widened as she sat up quickly, only to feel dizzy again. "What? Pregnant?" Her voice trembled as she touched her stomach. "I didn't know. I—" She stopped mid-sentence, her thoughts racing. A mix of emotions washed over her: shock, fear, and something she couldn't quite name. She looked at Brian, her eyes searching for answers. "I didn't—" I didn't want you to find out like this. Brian frowned. You knew? Abigail nodded slowly. I found out a week ago. I didn't know how to tell you, or if I should tell you. Brian took a deep breath, trying to calm his nerves. Abigail, we might be divorced now, but if this is my child, I have a right to know. Tears welled up in Abigail's eyes. It is, she whispered. I didn't want to complicate things for you. Brian's face softened. He reached out and gently held her hand. Abigail, this changes everything. We need to figure out what's next, together. Abigail nodded, feeling the weight of the situation settle over them. Neither of them knew what the future held, but they both knew one thing. This baby was going to change their lives forever. But little did they know, the surprises weren't over yet. As Abigail and Brian sat in the quiet hospital room, the weight of the news hung heavily between them. Neither spoke for a moment, letting the beeping of machines and the soft shuffle of nurses in the hallway fill the silence. Abigail rubbed her hands together nervously, glancing at Brian. She wanted to say something, but the words felt stuck in her throat. Brian finally broke the silence. Abigail, I know we didn't plan for this, he said, his voice steady but soft. But we need to start planning now. This baby isn't just a problem. It's a person. Our person. Abigail swallowed hard, trying to hold back tears. She wasn't sure if she felt scared or relieved by his words. But Brian, we're divorced. How are we supposed to do this together? It's not like we're us anymore. Brian thought for a moment, tapping his finger on the hospital bed rail. Maybe we're not us, he said slowly, but that doesn't mean we can't be a team. For this baby, we have to be. The word team echoed in Abigail's mind. Could they really work together without all the hurt and arguments from the past getting in the way? She wasn't sure, but as she looked at Brian, she saw something in his eyes she hadn't seen in months, a spark of determination. Suddenly there was a knock at the door. A nurse peeked in, carrying a clipboard. Excuse me, she said, smiling kindly. I need to go over some details with you, Abigail. And there's something else we found in your test. Abigail and Brian exchanged a nervous glance. What else could possibly be going on? Abigail nodded and the nurse stepped inside, setting the clipboard down on the bedside table. We noticed something unusual in your results, the nurse began. It's not just about the pregnancy. There's a condition we need to monitor closely. Abigail froze. What kind of condition? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. The nurse hesitated, as if choosing her words carefully. We'll explain it more after further tests, she said, but it's something that might affect both you and the baby. For now, just rest and take care of yourself. As the nurse left the room, Abigail felt her chest tighten. What did she mean? Was the baby in danger? Was she? Questions swirled in her mind, and she looked at Brian, her face pale with worry. Brian reached for her hand again, gripping it tightly. Whatever this is, he said firmly, we'll face it together. You don't have to go through this alone, Abigail. Abigail nodded, but the fear in her heart didn't ease. Little did they know, the challenges ahead would test everything, their patience, their strength, and even their bond. And the mystery of Abigail's condition was only the beginning. Abigail lay back against the pillows, her heart racing after the nurse's words. Brian sat beside her, his jaw tight, but his eyes filled with determination. They both tried to act calm, but the uncertainty hung like a shadow over them. Abigail, Brian began after a moment, his voice steady, We're going to figure this out. Whatever the nurse meant, we'll get answers, and we'll deal with it one step at a time. But I need to know, how are you feeling right now? Really? Abigail exhaled deeply and looked at Brian, her eyes glistening. I feel scared, Brian. Scared for the baby. Scared for what's happening to me. It's like everything is out of my control, and I don't know how to fix it. Brian nodded, understanding her words. I know it's a lot, but you're not in this alone. Whatever happens, I'll be here. We'll face this together, just like we faced everything else, even the tough stuff. Abigail managed a weak smile and squeezed Brian's hand. His words gave her a small glimmer of hope, but the fear didn't disappear. The nurse had mentioned more tests, and Abigail dreaded what those tests might reveal. Later that afternoon, a doctor entered the room with a serious look on his face, carrying a folder of papers. Ms. Abigail Parker, he said, flipping through the folder, we've reviewed your results, and we need to discuss something important. Are you ready to hear what we found? Abigail's grip on Brian's hand tightened, and she nodded nervously. Yes, please. Tell me what's happening. The doctor pulled up a chair and sat down beside her bed. During the tests, we noticed signs of a rare condition, he explained. It's called gestational myelopathy. It's a spinal condition that sometimes occurs during pregnancy, and it could lead to complications for you and the baby. Abigail's eyes widened, and she felt her chest tighten. Is it dangerous? She asked, her voice trembling. The doctor hesitated before responding. It's manageable with the right care, but it's critical that we monitor you closely. You'll need to come in for regular checkups, and there may be some challenges ahead. Abigail felt tears streaming down her face. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. As if the divorce and pregnancy weren't enough, now she had to worry about her health and the baby's safety. Brian leaned forward, his expression serious. What can I do to help her? He asked the doctor. I want to make sure she and the baby get through this. The doctor nodded. Support is key. Help her rest, stay positive, and make sure she follows our instructions closely. Stress isn't helpful, and she'll need a strong support system to get through this. Abigail looked at Brian, feeling both overwhelmed and grateful. He wasn't giving up on her, even though they weren't married anymore. The thought gave her some comfort, but the road ahead still looked uncertain. What neither Abigail nor Brian realized was that there was another twist waiting, one that would turn their already complicated journey into something even more unexpected. Abigail stared out the hospital window as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. Her mind was spinning with the doctor's words, gestational myelopathy. She'd never even heard of it before today, and now it felt like her world had been turned upside down. Brian, sitting beside her, broke the silence. Abigail, he said softly, I know this is a lot. But we're going to handle it. I've been thinking, maybe you shouldn't be alone right now, at least until things get more stable. Abigail looked at him, her brow furrowed. What are you saying, Brian? She asked hesitantly. I'm saying, maybe you should stay with me for a while, Brian replied, his eyes steady. Just until we know more. That way I can help make sure you're okay, and you won't have to do this by yourself. Abigail hesitated. The idea of staying with Brian felt strange. They were no longer a couple, after all. But deep down, she knew he was right. Facing this alone was terrifying, and having someone by her side, someone who cared, might make all the difference. Okay, she said quietly, almost surprising herself, but only until we figure things out. I don't want to be a burden. You're not a burden. Brian said firmly. This is my child too, remember? We're in this together. The next day, Abigail was discharged from the hospital, but with a long list of instructions from the doctors. She needed to rest, attend regular checkups, and avoid any kind of stress. As Brian drove her to his apartment, she couldn't help but feel a mix of emotions, relief that she wouldn't be alone, but also anxiety about what the future might hold. Brian's apartment was neat and cozy, with shelves lined with books and photos of family vacations. Abigail noticed a picture of the two of them from happier times, a camping trip where they'd laughed until their sides hurt while trying to set up the tent. Seeing it made her heart ache, but she pushed the feeling aside. You can take the bedroom, Brian said as he carried her bag inside. I'll sleep on the couch. Abigail shook her head. Brian, you don't have to do that. I'll be fine on the couch. No way, Brian said, flashing a small smile. Doctor's orders. You need to rest. And I'll make sure you do. Abigail couldn't help but smile back, even though her heart still felt heavy. Thank you, she said softly, for everything. As the days passed, they began to settle into a routine. Brian cooked meals, made sure Abigail took her medications, and even went to the grocery store to get the weird cravings she started having, like pickles and peanut butter. But as they started to find their rhythm, something unexpected happened. Abigail received a phone call from the hospital. The voice on the other end was serious. Ms. Parker, this is Dr. Harris. We've reviewed your latest tests, and there's something else we need to discuss. Can you come in tomorrow? Abigail's stomach dropped. Something else? She asked, her voice barely audible. Yes, the doctor replied. It's important we talk in person. Please don't be alarmed, but we need to investigate further. As the call ended, Abigail felt her chest tighten. Another twist? Another challenge? She looked at Brian, who had just walked into the room with a tray of snacks. What's wrong? He asked immediately, noticing her pale face. Abigail set down the phone, her hands shaking. It's the hospital, she said. They found something else. Brian's expression hardened. Then we'll face it, he said firmly. Whatever it is, we'll deal with it together. But neither of them could have prepared for what the next hospital visit would reveal. The next morning, Brian and Abigail drove to the hospital, both filled with quiet tension. The doctor had been vague over the phone, and the uncertainty weighed heavily on their minds. Neither spoke much during the car ride, but Brian occasionally glanced at Abigail to make sure she was okay. When they arrived, Dr. Harris greeted them in his office with a warm but serious demeanor. He motioned for them to sit down and then began flipping through Abigail's medical file. We've completed additional tests based on your previous results, Dr. Harris said, adjusting his glasses. And we've discovered something unusual. Abigail felt her pulse quicken. Unusual? What do you mean? She asked, clutching Brian's arm for reassurance. Dr. Harris cleared his throat. Well, it appears that the spinal condition we identified may not be the only factor at play here. We found indications of something else, a genetic marker that could potentially affect your baby's development. Brian leaned forward, his expression hardening. What kind of effect? He asked, his voice steady but tense. The doctor nodded as if anticipating the question. It's too early to say for certain, but this particular marker is linked to heightened neural activity. In some cases, it's associated with exceptional cognitive abilities. However, it also comes with risks. We'll need to monitor closely to ensure everything progresses safely. Abigail's eyes widened. Are you saying my baby might be gifted? She asked hesitantly. Dr. Harris offered a small smile. It's a possibility, though we can't confirm anything yet. What's most important is ensuring the baby's health and yours. With proper care, we'll navigate this together. Abigail looked at Brian, her emotions swirling. Part of her felt amazed by the possibility of her baby being special in a way she'd never imagined. But another part felt terrified by the unknown challenges that could come with it. Brian squeezed her hand and turned to the doctor. What's the next step? What do we need to do? Dr. Harris explained that Abigail would need more regular checkups, specialized care, and possibly some consultations with genetic specialists. He reassured them that the hospital would provide the support they needed to get through this. As the appointment ended and they walked back to the car, Abigail glanced at Brian. I don't know what to think, she admitted, her voice shaky. Brian gave her a reassuring smile. We don't need to figure it all out today, he said. For now, we just take it one step at a time. Abigail nodded, but her mind kept racing. If her baby really was different, what would their future look like? Would she be able to handle it? And what role would Brian play in their lives now that they were no longer married? Little did they know, their journey was about to take another unexpected turn, one that would test their limits and bring them closer in ways they never imagined. Abigail and Brian returned home after the hospital visit, their minds buzzing with questions and possibilities. Over the next few months, they faced the challenges together: regular checkups, genetic consultations, and managing Abigail's health with care and caution. With Brian's unwavering support, Abigail began to feel a glimmer of hope for the future. The day finally arrived when Abigail gave birth to their baby girl, who they named Grace. The room was filled with joy and tears as Abigail held Grace in her arms, feeling the warmth of unconditional love. Despite the fears and uncertainties they had faced, Grace was healthy and full of life. Abigail looked at Brian, who sat beside her, his eyes fixed on their daughter. She's perfect, he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. As the months went by, Grace began to show remarkable signs of advanced cognitive abilities. By her first birthday, she was speaking full sentences, solving puzzles meant for older children, and even displaying an uncanny ability to remember details. Abigail and Brian couldn't believe their eyes, watching her grow and thrive. While their divorce had once separated them, Grace became the bridge that brought them back together in a different way. They learned to co-parent with love and respect, putting aside their differences to give Grace the best life possible. Their shared journey taught them the power of resilience, the importance of teamwork, and the beauty of unexpected blessings. Abigail often found herself reflecting on everything they had been through: the fainting episode, the health scare, the genetic discovery, and all the moments that had brought them here. She realized that sometimes life's biggest challenges come with hidden gifts, and Grace was the greatest gift of all. And so, Abigail and Brian's story ended not with closure, but with new beginnings, finding hope in the unexpected and embracing the journey together as parents to their extraordinary little girl, Grace. Thank you for letting me help craft this tale. Let me know if you'd like to explore more stories or ideas together.